The courtroom was still, the air heavy, and they vowed that day would never come. Then Jim Jones's own son came up, his eyes locked, his voice trembling, and he spoke. You could hear Chrissy gasp as someone in the rear dropped their phone, shattering the dips at Legacy forever. Camron manipulated my mom and destroyed our family. Since this was more than simply a music feud, old grudges, or shattered brotherhoods, it was treachery, blood, and the guy at the core, Camron Harlem's Pink. Now that the Fur Prince is portrayed as the antagonist in a tale more sinister than anyone anticipated, what actually transpired behind closed doors between Chrissy and Camron, and why? How did Dipset go from being renowned to being legally explosive in a single generation? And is Jim Jones silent when his own kid is crying in front of the judge? While some fans are shocked, others claim they saw this coming all along, and Twitter is blazing the internet and dubbing it the betrayal of the decade. There is no doubt that this is war, not simply theater, and it all began when a son finally raised his voice. The courtroom was crowded with people while the cameras rolled. Everyone wanted in, including wall-to-wall media, bloggers, supporters, and those wearing fake wigs to blend in, because this wasn't just any trial. This was the one where Jim Jones sat with his teeth gritted and his eyes locked while his teenage son adjusted the microphone, dragging Harlem's untouchable idols through the mud by their own blood. The quiet that followed was louder than any diss track Dips had ever released. Camron used my mom, and he used us. No one saw the explosion coming. The room didn't just go silent, it froze. Camron was seated 3 rows back, not even moving, and Chrissy's fingers trembled as she gripped the armrest as if it were owed money. Examining a sweatshirt while wearing sunglasses inside a stone-cold face. But let's go back in time because this explosion wasn't unexpected. Instead, let's discuss how we got. For more than 10 years, Camron and Jim Jones led one of the most recognizable hip-hop groups, Dipset, loud and untouchable. But behind it all, Pink a civil war was simmering in the background between Mink and Harlem Swagger. And guess what? It had less to do with music and more to do with a lady. Chrissy Lampin, though Chrissy's name continued appearing in the background of reality cameras and studio lights. Original Ride or Die Jim's long-term partner was a reality TV legend. At first, no one took Chrissy's late-night texting and whispered rumors with Camron seriously. She was faithful, and he was Jim's brother from a previous mother. But then he started sending her phony names, late-night hotel reservations, and an Uber receipt that was paid for by during the filming of Love and Hip Hop Miami. Jim remained mute, despite Camron's production business providing an account to a place suspiciously close to Chrissy's Airbnb. According to court documents, Jim Jones's teenage son stumbled onto a laptop that was buried, but the boy later discovered that he didn't know or didn't want to. He discovered a folder called Keep Your Mouth Shut in storage while searching for old Dipset DVDs. Within it were voice recordings and screenshots of a 19-minute FaceTime screen. Recording that showed Camron laughing without a shirt while drinking wine and spoke with someone who sounded and looked a lot like Chrissy. When the same son testified, he claimed to be innocent and said, I used to look up to Camron. He was like an uncle. But after I realized what he happened to my mother and how it devastated my father, I came to the realization that everything was a lie. This is where things get even worse. A confidential source inside the courtroom informed us that the son had to take 2 breaks from his evidence to wipe away his emotions and collect himself. He claimed to have heard Chrissy and Jim brutally argue, ones in which Chrissy allegedly said, You believe you were the only victim? And what sealed it off, you know? You know what it is, Chrissy. He ain't gotta find out unless you want him. 2. Camron's distorted but distinct voice said in an audio recording being played directly in the courtroom. After a moment of quiet laughter, the full room gasped, and someone in the gallery actually passed out, but there was still more. The boy then unveiled his mother once sent him a handwritten note that detailed the beginnings of her complex relationship with Camron and served as a safety net in case anything went wrong. As business, but she felt duped, and Jim would never comprehend Camron's crew, so she opposed right away. Because the letter was confirmed by a handwriting analyzer and postmarked in 2019, far before this trial had started, the judge permitted the hearsay. Nevertheless, Jim Jones remained silent, sitting with his lips squeezed tightly and periodically massaging his brow as if, after the letter was read, Camron's lawyer asked for a recess. But Cam, was just getting started as he tried to forget the moment. Once it was rejected, the prosecution sent another shocking social media message to someone saved as Queen C via Camron's burner Instagram account. So you've already told him you're on set. You do that thing with your tongue, don't you? The courtroom is a minefield now. Know which side to support. Jim appears deceived, Chrissy is devastated, and Camron sits there as if he knew this day would arrive and didn't give a damn about the sun. Concluded his testimony with a statement that genuinely stunned the judge. He broke us, he used her, and now he wants to pretend that he's the victim. The judge sat in silence. The chamber was still, and the court was temporarily postponed because Camron himself was about to testify. Everyone expected Camron to rush out of the courtroom after Jim's son dropped the emotional grenade since the tension was so high that it could be cut with a dipset chain. Avoid the stand, or perhaps even make a statement via his public relations team, but no, that would have been too tidy. Instead, Camron got up and walked, as if the limelight wasn't already dazzling enough, walking into a radio freestyle without a suit or tie, wearing only a bubble vest, black jeans, and sunglasses indoors. When the bailiff called his name, the judge narrowed her gaze, and Camron mounted the stand. Everyone in the room held their breath and phones vibrated. The prosecutor came up to Camron, and even Chrissy was unable to look up as she gazed down at the table with her fingers clutching her luxury handbag as if it were a lifeline. With assurance, she addressed Mr. Giles using his official identity, asking, "Did you or did you not have an intimate relationship with Miss Lampin during her time in a long-term relationship with Mr. Jones?" "I beg you, the dip set," Camron replied, flashing that renowned Harlem smirk. The courtroom. The judge's smirk was all the public needed to go nuclear on Twitter. The judge pounded her gavel order, but the damage was already done. Jim Jones should release a diss track today, but back in court, the heat was simply too much. Exploded Camron just begged the dipset Chrissy to toss the entire bag away. The prosecutor started by removing a transcript of a wiretapped conversation between Camron and an unidentified female caller. "You kept repeating that the talk wasn't serious since it wasn't seen, but rather that I was there because you needed me," and the voice resembled Chrissy's from the occasion 2 years ago. The room froze. And now, look, he hates me. But he doesn't hate you. He doesn't even know half the truth. I don't know who that person was, but this wasn't a one-time error. Rather, it was an emotional entanglement based on years of secrecy. He attempted to minimize it. Chrissy's voice cracked, and it was me. She whispered it quietly, but loudly enough for the microphone to pick it up, and it sounded like the judge's. Lips pursed as he leaned closer, acknowledging that Chrissy Lampin's voice was included in the official court record. "Yours, Miss Lampin." Chrissy nodded, and I'm gasping once again. Jim Jones didn't even blink, but you could sense the bloodshot anger swelling in his eyes. Then came the prosecution's most formidable card to date. A string of emails from Camron's label to VH1 producers offering a supposedly shot during a difficult time in Chrissy and Jim's relationship. The covert Chrissy and Camron reality program. Spin-off never aired. But why wasn't this made public? Was it true that Chrissy had even signed a non-disclosure agreement, a copy of which had been leaked and was already in the hands of the prosecution? Prosecutors asked Camron, who shrugged. When Jim heard it, VH1 shut it down and Jim's eyes were fixed on him. "Why didn't you tell your friend that you were attempting to?" Cameron's statement was furthered by the prosecution, who said that loyalty is a fallacy in this industry. You either make moves or you get played. The crowd let out a scream, and one man in the gallery even yelled, "You foul," before being led away. But that wasn't even the worst part. The judge interrupted everything as Camron was leaving the witness stand, saying, "There's one more recording." An anonymous sender inside a flash drive marked only with a black C was the startling audio that revealed it was Camron, she added, adding that a fresh envelope had just come that morning. Speaking to a group of men about the Chrissy, his obviously inebriated speech garbled at what sounded like a private party. "Predicament, man, it wasn't even meant to become personal, but you know how women are." She took offense and began talking, as if we had been together forever or something. Jim Jones became emotional and began to disappear. "I don't have time for that, bro. Time for that, bro. You can't make a fortune on feelings, so you must stay." The judge appeared unsure of whether to shout or cry, and the courtroom was quiet. Chrissy's emotions were genuine and unstaged. Jim's hands were locked into fists beneath the table, and it was more than simply betrayal. Camron had exploited his emotions, twisted the story in an attempt to make money out of suffering, and the audience now saw why Jim's son was so distraught during his testimony because the judge ordered a brief recess before Part 2 concluded. But what he witnessed was more than simply cheating. It was the methodical disintegration of what he called home. Just before the camera feed went off, Jim, announcing possible charges for civil exploitation, emotional abuse, and slander. Jones got up and left the courtroom without saying anything. He was just a broken man leaving a haunted place. But what transpired outside of that? What transpired in the courtroom when former Dipset members, fans, and the media flooded the hallway? As soon as Jim Jones entered, microphones attacked. "Jim, do you forgive Camron? Did Chrissy lie to you for years? Are you still standing by him?" shouted the TikTok live streamers and shade room interns like bees. "Your household?" Jim walked directly to the black SUV that was waiting outside, slammed, without responding to any questions. The door and left without turning around. But once, inside the courthouse, Chrissy fell, not figuratively but actually, and a court officer had to seize her before she knees hitting the ground. The tears were no longer just grief, but exposure. This wasn't reality TV. This was the kind of real life that you can't edit. Sort that is painful, and Camron walked out as if it were any other Wednesday. He even dared to tell one of the guards, "No." He smirked and said, "Hard feelings, big dog." You could hear Chrissy crying down the hall. That evening, the internet descended into in full meltdown mode. Camron began to trend with a dip setup. Chrissy got free of Jimmy, and then an old photo was leaked for the first time. A 2016 photo of Camron and Chrissy at a beach property in Miami shows Chrissy ostensibly residing in New York, but the date stamp didn't lie, and the caption read, "Smug Boom," a few days before Jim flew down. The narrative wasn't merely a courtroom drama. It was fans began piecing together Instagram postings of vacations, love, hip-hop episode air dates, and dubious lyrics from Camron's relationship timeline scandal. Joel's Santana Yep dipsets were the actual bomb, but everyone else was playing detective with the old tracks. At 2:17 a.m., his own wild card went live on Instagram, with his hooded, blunt-slit eyes low, and his voice harsh. "Do you want to act?" Chrissy asks me why I haven't spoken up because Jim wasn't ready, but now that everyone understands what loyalty looks like, I'm startled. When it's one-sided, that foul energy guy was attempting to incite the entire team against one another by using Jim's son as bait and Chrissy as bait. Got more bravery than we all put together, salute fans poured in the comments, and if Jules is speaking, he just blew the lid off all devotion during the legacy period. The repercussions were immediate when sponsors abruptly canceled Camron's limited edition sneaker agreement with Reebok and discreetly halted the pending review on VH1, deleted outdated promos with a Dipset theme from their Legends of Love and hip-hop playlist. Dame Dash even unfollowed Camron on Instagram before the following shocking revelation. Jim Jones's legal team declared that they would sue VH1 and the producers of Love and Hip Hop, not Camron, because of leaked emails that indicated they Lawsuit claimed egregious emotional negligence on the part of the defendant, who reportedly knew about Camron and Chrissy's predicament years ago and utilized it to influence narratives for ratings. And exploitation of a youngster, alluding to Jim's son's placement in a psychologically taxing setting for the drama on television, and in the midst of this publicity blood. Within 72 hours of the courtroom meltdown, Camron took the unimaginable and appeared on Drink Champs. He sat down with a drink in hand and addressed the "don't pretend like I'm the only one who violated boundaries. Chrissy and I have a history together. Perhaps she was hurt, but was I wrong? I know it's grown people's business, and I will always adore Jimmy, but love doesn't mean that if I'm the bad guy, I have to keep quiet." Now that the internet has broken, memes have been all over the place, and the interview's audio has been used as the backdrop music for clumsy breakup videos, parodies, and poisonous ex-confessionals. But Jim was going crazy and posted a black screen on Instagram, while Camron was transforming controversy into streams, with the message, "Family loyalty is what makes you, not blood." Then Jim vanished. According to many close to him, he booked a last-minute ticket to Ghana, where he has property, and departed New York entirely. Some said he needed spiritual. Chrissy is supposedly in treatment and has severed all communication with Camron, while some claim that he simply needed to breathe. However, the harm has already been done. Her reputation is damaged, her brand is fragile, and supporters are split. Jim's son hasn't made any public statements since the trial, but insiders say he's thriving and has received an offer for a book deal. Yes, a working agreement for I, Son of Silence, How Betrayal Broke My House, and Right When We Believed It Was. A now-deleted black-and-white photo of Jim, Camron, and Jules was shared on Dipset's official Instagram with the remark, "Some empires fall, others implode." This is what happens when ego eats loyalty. Camron needs help, not a podcast, the comment area was overflowing with. One of hip-hop's most recognizable brotherhoods disbanded as a result of Deepet's actual death in court, not because of gunfire or rivalry, but rather because of covert sex and silence. According to insiders, a second testimonial from someone even closer to Camron could be forthcoming. So even though the courtroom has closed, this story is far from over. Someone with a story to share, and believe me, we'll be here right here when the bomb goes off, so you've heard it now. A lady was exposed. A fraternity was split from the inside by ego rather than by outside forces, and that was all, or at least what they permitted in that courtroom. Years of secrecy and secrets. But the real question is, was Camron always the bad guy? Or was this all a twisted game that everyone was playing? Did Jim truly not know all these years? Or did he remain silent because the truth hurt more than the lie? And let's not forget that Chrissy played to survive. Who is truly at fault here? The VH1 producers who stood behind the cameras grinning while families broke apart for a ratings increase? Or was it the affair? The fact that no one paused to consider how this might break a young man witnessing it all from the shadows dropped was betrayal. Your opinions in the comments section, because we still want to hear from you, so this isn't done. The truth seekers, the enthusiasts, the people who, did you stand as you witnessed Deepet rise and fall? What do you think Camron was with Jim? Unclear. Or do you believe Chrissy's more powerful than any testimony was silence? Enjoy this video and show it to your team. Additionally, if you haven't signed up for the next shocking revelation, since News of the Street is a person who is even nearer, the when will family members come forward? You'll want to be right here if they do, because the truth is not always buried.